Hello everyone and welcome to week 6 lesson 4 of higher PE. Today we're looking at quantitative and qualitative data, and yes, you've all looked at this before, but there's no harm in revising it and doing it even better. So your learning intentions for today are, by the end of the lesson I will know the differences between qualitative and quantitative data. By the end of the lesson I will know what methods we have used to give us both types of data. And by the end of the lesson, I will be able to explain the benefits and limitations of both types of data, which will allow you to answer, analyse, explain, evaluate questions for the same effect. Okay? So, qualitative or quantitative data. Watch the following video and note down two things: the description for qualitative data and a description for quantitative data. So write down the two of those that you learned from that video.
Hello, welcome to Moo Moo Math, where we upload a new math video every day. In this video, I'd like to talk about data. Data can be divided into two groups called quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative data is numerical. Qualitative data is descriptive data. Let's look at some examples of both. Some examples of quantitative data would be the number of pets, the time of day, the temperature outside. Quantitative data can be graphed. If you count or measure, you are collecting quantitative data. There are two types of quantitative data: discrete and continuous. Discrete data is usually data you can count, and continuous data is usually data that you measure. I have a separate video on these two types of data. Qualitative data is descriptive or observation and uses words. For example, the color of a house, the smell of a sock, the texture of a shirt. Let's look at quantitative or qualitative. Consider a cat. The quantitative data would be that the cat has 4 legs and weighs 10 pounds. The qualitative data would be the cat is yellow and has soft fur. Let's look at a bookshelf. The quantitative data would be you have 50 books on the bookshelf and is 50 centimeters tall. The qualitative data would be that it is multicolor and has a smooth surface. Hope this video helps on quantitative and qualitative data. Moo Moo Math uploads a new math video every day.
So here is what should be in your basic descriptions for qualitative or quantitative data. The differences are quite clear. So for quantitative data, this is data that's based on factual things, not opinion. It usually gives a number result. You've got to think quantity. The quantity of something is the number of something. For qualitative data, it's based on opinion of what you think and what you feel. Looks at how good you think you are in a factor usually, or how you might have development needs, and you've got to write that down in a text result, so it's written answers in words. Okay, that's the main differences between. That's what you would include in your descriptions. Hopefully you got that from the video. So for us, the kind of methods that gather quantitative or qualitative data are standardised tests are quantitative data, because they give you numbers at the end of it, a time. A number of times the number for the oblique test. The Illinois agility test again is a time. Whereas our qualitative data gathering methods that give us qualitative information are questionnaires. For example, the POMS test, or your confidence inventory, or your SCAT test. Those are qualitative data gathering methods because they give information based on opinions. However, based on what I've just said in the last slide, your SCAT test, your POMS test, etc., you might be thinking, no, that's not right. The SCAT test gives me numbers in the end. The POMS test gives me numbers in the end, but it's never straightforward. So some data gathering methods like the POMS test, the SCAT test, are based on thoughts and opinions, that we just mentioned there that can provide numerical results. It's a questionnaire that requires you to rate how you feel about the statements related to your team or something like that. So although there is a number result at the end, the questionnaire is still based on your thoughts and feelings and opinions, and therefore it is qualitative, not quantitative. So even though it gives you a number at the end, the information is based on opinions and thoughts and feelings, so that's qualitative, and keep that in mind. So here's your first task. I want you to copy and complete the table below to sort the 7 data gathering methods we have used in higher PE. So do that just now. So copy down the table in your jotter on a piece of paper and fill in which tests are qualitative and which tests are quantitative. Pause the video here and don't move on to the next slide until you've done all that. Changing to the next slide in 3, 2, 1. So here are the answers, and hopefully you will have done that on your piece of paper and you're able to check and change anything that you didn't get right in there. Now, of course, because we all did different tests for different factors, if we're in different classes, there's more there than you would think, but just make sure that you've got the right ones in the right places that you did yourself. Okay? So check and change that. Well done if you got them all right. But of course, our monitoring methods are also ways of gathering data. But which one is qualitative and which ones are quantitative? Sort them into the table. Pause the video here, copy this table down, and then go to the next slide once you've done that, or play the video again once you've done that. So pause the video here. And check and change time again. There's the answers there. Your qualitative data gathering method is your training diary because you're writing your thoughts and feelings on that, and your quantitative data gathering methods are your midway testing of your standardised tests, like your blackout test and your sit and reach, your 50-metre sprint test and your Illinois agility test. But remember, midway testing can also be qualitative, and it depends on which midway test you did. So if it was a SCAT test, POM test, sports confidence inventory, all the rest, those remain qualitative. And that's the difference between the two, but the training diary is definitely qualitative. And here is the next task for you. I'd like you to decide what benefits of each type there are for qualitative and quantitative. So some of these benefits are only for quantitative data and some of these benefits are only for qualitative data. So I want you to write qualitative or quantitative on the right hand column there. So have a look through those and decide whether you think, for example, data is not affected by bias. Is that quantitative or qualitative data? And do the same for the rest. Pause the video here. And here are the answers. So you can check and change what you did in your table there. So data is not affected by bias. That is quantitative data. Those are the numbers, the times, and things that you get from those standardised tests. Provides depth to the data. That's qualitative because you can give more information in a written form rather than just getting a number from a time. You don't know why you got that score in the 50-metre sprint test. You could have been wearing terrible shoes, you could have been having an off day, not eating, but that numerical test data doesn't give you that information. It provides specificity to the performer. That's the same reasons why it's qualitative, and you're given far more detail when you're writing things down rather than just taking a number. Easy to monitor, far easier to monitor numbers and the ups and downs of numbers instead of qualitative data. It's very hard to read all the different types of scripts and information that you've got and compare any improvements, whereas you can clearly see that a 5's gone to a 10 or a 10's gone to a 9 seconds. So it's far easier to monitor quantitative data and can analyse large groups quickly. That's quantitative data as well. You can run 30 people on the bleep test within half an hour. It might take longer to interview 30 people in a questionnaire, for example. And this one's for the limitations of each type of data. So the limitations are listed below, and you must decide if it's a benefit of qualitative data or a benefit of quantitative data. So copy the table below and complete. I like the last one. Okay. And you'll have found that when you look at these answers, using to check and change the work that you've done in the last slide, that's very much a flip of the benefits there. So not easily to analyse large groups quickly, so if you had to interview people, that would be qualitative data, makes it hard to do. Questionnaires take far longer than running the bleep test or running the sprint test. You can do that 30 people all at a time. It might not provide specificity to the performer, those quantitative tests. You don't know why you're running those times, you don't know why you're getting those numbers. There's no written facts about that, around that, it's just the number on the page. It has limited depth to data, that's quantitative data, same reasons there. It's not as easy to monitor qualitative data, all the written things comparing tons of training diaries as we're moving on. And it can be affected by bias, that's those qualitative data gathering methods. So if you're getting interviewed or if you're answering questions about yourself in relation to a factor, particularly emotional, mental and social factors, you might not be too keen to tell the absolute truth. So it can be affected by bias. So the next task you've got to do is match the points to the examples and the explanations. So explain the benefits and limitations of qualitative data gathering methods. So you're going to do this first of all for qualitative data gathering methods. So you're going to make up the full answer of explaining the benefits and limitations of the qualitative data gathering methods, but here are your points. And in the next slide you'll see that I've given you a table, and I want you to match up the points to the examples and explanations, because of course we answer our questions using a P chain. So you've got the P here, but you've got to match it up to the right thing. Okay, so you don't have to copy down the table, just put what one's number 1, what one's number 2, what point is number 3, what point is number 4, what point is number 5. Yep, so here are the examples and the explanations, but we need the points. So what's number 1 from the last slides? Go back. You should have maybe copied down the points that I gave you in the next page. What one's number 1? What one's number 2? What one's number 3? What one's number 4? And what one's number 5? And here are your answers. So number 1 is it's easier to monitor. Number 2, it is not affected by bias. Number 3 is can analyse big groups quickly. Number 4 is it might not provide specificity. Number 5 is it has limited depth to data, and you should have taken the time to read the full explain answers for those so you can get a full picture of what's the example of that and what's the explanation for that being a good or a bad thing there. Okay. So your next task is for quantitative data, and I want you to match up the points that I've given you here. So copy these points down just now. For the next slide, you're going to need them. So you're going to explain the benefits and limitations of quantitative data, and those are the points there. But in the next page, I'll give you the 2 E's, and you've got to match the point to the 2 E's. So here are the 2 E's there, the examples and the explanations of the P chains. You've got to match the points that were on the other page, the page before that, to these. So take your time to do that just now. So what's number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5? Pause the slides here before you move on. And here is your answers here. So number 1 is it's not as easy to monitor. Number 2 is it can be affected by bias. Number 3 is you can't analyse large groups quickly. It can provide specificities, number 4, and number 5 was it has depth to the data. So that's the explanation of the benefits and the limitations for qualitative data. You should take your time to read it through. Right, so this is your final task. So what I want you to do just now is I want you to give me the questions to these answers. So write the questions in your jotter or your piece of paper. Not the full answers. You're not copying down the full answers. You just tell me what question would give me these answers. Okay? They're coming up. So what would the question be to these answers? So if that was what a marker had seen on a page, what would the question have been? So we think about how many marks it would be, what command word it would be, and what is it asking about. That's number 1. So this is answer number 2. What would the question be? So it's just a short little paragraph there. What would the command word be? How many marks would that answer be worth? And what's it asking about? Write down the question to number 2. And here is question at the answer 3. What is the question to? So it's a short thing there. What's the command word? What's it asking about? What could the question be? How many marks would that be worth? if that was a model answer, how many marks would that be worth? Now here is answer number 4. Now obviously you're going to be given an answer which is relevant to this lesson today. So what's the question to this answer? Based on today's lesson, what could that be? What's the command word there? And what is it asking for? And here is answer number 5. What is the question? So there's just one answer there. What's the command word? What would it be asking? And obviously it's got to be relevant to today's lesson. So coming up in the next slide is the answers. So make sure you've got all the answers, well, the questions, confusing how I'm saying this, but make sure you've got all the questions written down, number 1s to 5. Okay, and you can check and change on the next slide. And here are your answers. So number 1 was explain the benefits and limitations of quantitative data. Number 2 was describe quantitative data. Number 3 was describe qualitative data. Number 4 was identify a quantitative data gathering method you have used. And number 5 was identify a qualitative data gathering method you have used. Well done everybody, that was quite a beastly lesson, so hope you've really taken the time to go through all the work, because sometimes that can appear in your assessments. So well done people. See you tomorrow.